We have seen that we can use try-catch to handle exceptions. In this video, we'll look at how to handle exceptions using the try with resources statement. The try with resources statement is a try statement that declares one or more resources. The resources are automatically closed at the end of the statement. You should say that's a nice try, right? Here's an example of how we can use the try with resources statement. The resources are declared between the parentheses after the try keyword. And you can go ahead and specify multiple resources. Multiple resources are separated with a semicolon. When the code executes, they're open from left to right. So R1 is open first in this example, and then R2 is opened. At the end of the try with resources statement, they are all closed automatically, and they're closed from right to left. So R2 gets closed first, and then R1 gets closed second. This is because sometimes, or actually rather often, the second one depends on the first. So we first have to close the second before we can close the first. Let's have a look at our previous try-catch example again. We're now going to update it to use try with resources. So let's change this into a try with resource. So I'm going to be opening up my file reader within the parentheses after try. And then I'm going to say equals new file reader. And I'm going to just specify the path. And that will do. And I can actually comment this out, and you can assume that there's logic for reading the file between here. And as soon as it's done with the try block, it's going to try and close. But as you can see, there's a lot of red squigglies. If I hover over it, it will tell us why. It says an unhandled exception from the auto-closable resource, the Java I/O exception. So what happens is that when this file reader gets closed, the I/O exception can be thrown. So instead of having the file not found exception, we could go ahead and change this to I/O exception, or, and I like this better, I'm going to catch the more generic I/O exception as the second one. And this is important. The more generic ones always need to be later in there. Because if we do catch I/O exception and then catch file not found exception, we would actually never get to the file not found exception, because file not found is an I/O exception. As you can see here, when we hover over it, it says extends I/O exception. So this is why the I/O exception needs to be second in the list, because file not found exception is an I/O exception, and we could actually deal with it at first, and then therefore file not found would be unreachable code if it were the second catch. Anyways, the file reader is now automatically closed at the end of our statement, even if an exception is thrown. So that's quite a nice way of doing it. We can use the try with resources statement to simplify exception handling for resources that must be closed. And we'll see this in the next module a lot, but for example file streams, and later you'll see that you can also use it for databases and network connections. Often we don't need to finally block anymore for cleaning up. When we have normal try, the catch block is obligated, but for the try with resources, catch is also not obligated. You can just have a try block for the try with resources. You could say, all you need is to just try. Okay, I promise I'm done with the lame word jokes for now, at least for the try statement. On a more serious note, please mind that not all the resources are auto-closable. And in these other situations, you may still need to finally block to close resources. So resources that are auto-closable are actually very easy to recognize, because they implement the auto-closable interface. That's quite a logical naming convention there. But sometimes you'll see a class that implements the closable, and you might be inclined to think that that's not auto-closable, because you'd probably expect that auto-closable is going to extend closable and not the other way around. And logically, you'd be right. But there's something funny going on. because closable extends auto-closable and not the other way around. Fun fact, really a lot of fun. Alright, let's auto-close this video. Sorry, that was really the last word pun for now, for real. In the next video, we'll look at how to create our own custom exceptions.